In der Heimen was Simches, in Wien oder Zkenz, macht man noch jenem Chotsch, es macht nicht ganz Sens. Sie leben von sich, wer will abnehmen a Chance, wie Tier Chazo.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome to Online Smicha. Today we'll discuss a halacha in this week's Parsha, Parshat Ki Tisa. We find a halachic connection between what's discussed in this week's Parsha and somehow in a strange way to a minig which was used to take place on Purim, which is this week. And that is, the Shach and Hilchos Yeridea brings that on Purim there was a minig of different places that they would eat tarnegoilus, a chicken, with a sauce made out of chalav shkedim, made out of almond milk. And the question would be, it looks for the passerby, it looks that the person might be eating basar b'chalav. Why would they be able to do that? And that's how we'll get to the discussion of the Isser of Basar B'chalav and the Isser of Maris Na'ayin on Basar B'chalav. Well, in this week's Parsha, we find one of the three places the Torah prohibits Basar B'chalav. The Torah says, Reishis Bikurei Ad Mascha Tavi Beis Hashem Alikecha, that the first of your growings you bring to Beis Hashem Alikecha, to the house of Hashem. Loi sevashel gedi b'chalev imoi. Don't cook a goat, a kid, in its mother's milk. So the first thing is, there obviously must be a connection between the first part of the pasuk, which talks about the bikurim, and the second part of the pasuk, which talks about the Isser of Basar B'chalav. As you learn the halachas in Yeridea and Hilchos Basar B'chalav, and you study the Gemara Chulin, you will see that every one of these words, lois, vashel, gdi, bachalev, imoy, each one has an exclusion, is teaching us something. Because as we know, this Isser is found three places in three places in the Torah. It repeats itself in three places, lois, vashel, gdi, bachalev, imoy. And by the very fact it says the same thing in three places. Chazal tell us, different than the many other mitzvahs or isurim, where we also find it repeats itself. And over there we say, perhaps, that the same isur is such a negative thing, such a harsh isur, that if somebody, chas v'sholom, transgresses it, he'll be over more than one lav. Whereas by Basar B'chalav, it's not more than one lav, rather it's different aspects of the isur. There is the isur of Basar B'chalav, to vashel, not to cook meat and milk. There's the Isser of Basar B'chalav, not to eat milk and meat that were cooked together. And then there is the issue of the Isser of Basar B'chalav of not to gain profit, hana, from milk and meat that were cooked together. Interesting enough, the Rebbe has a elaborate sikha here, a lamda shesicha, if that's what the Torah wants us to know about the Isser of Basar B'chalav. Why did it not say Leisavashel, Leisechoil, V'Leisehena? Each one dedicating for that detail of the Isser. And the halacha tells us that you are only prohibited Basar B'chalav after they were cooked together. The cooking itself is a problem, and if they were cooked together, that is the type of Basar B'chalav you're not allowed to eat, and that is the type of Basar B'chalav you're not allowed to have profit from. But in all three places, the Torah stresses tivashel, lois tivashel. You're not allowed to cook. And again, in the Shulchan Aruch, there's a whole discussion. What is the definition of cooking? How about roasting? How about salting? How about soaking? That is all the beginning and throughout Hilchos Basar B'chalav. What is unique about the Isser of Basar B'chalav? It's one of the very few that are on top of the Isser of not eating. There's many things that Torah prohibits us from eating. But here, you're just even not allowed to cook the thing together. You're not allowed to be involved in cooking of Basar B'chalav. You're not allowed to have hana. So in certain ways, it's very unique from all other mitzvahs or isurim from the Torah. What's the reason behind the Isser of Basar B'chalav? So there is a sefer on the back of the Torah Shlema Chumash. He he collects some like 10 different reasons that are brought in Rishonim, some in Achronim for this Isser of Basar B'chalav, and to connect the first part of the pasuk, Reishis Bikurei Ad Mascha, Tavi Beis Hashem Alekecha, Loisavashel Gedi B'Chalevimoi, he brings from the Rambam and from other Rishonim that say that this was a hocus pocus type of thing that the Ovdei Avodah Zarah used to do. That to make their ground produce fruit and vegetation and crops in a much faster and better way, they would cook up some form of basar b'chalav and say this is like a hocus pocus magic and pour it into the ground so it should produce better crops. So the Torah says, what type of a bikurim do I want to be brought? Only bikurim which did not have any basar b'chalav done with it. And the way the Rishonim put it, and this is not the common tam for this Isser that you hear, but it's based on the Gemara Nevuchim from the Rambam and some other Rishonim, that they say that it's a form of Avodah Zarah. Basar b'chalav is like a sniff, a connection to somehow that's how the Ovdei Avodah Zarah used to do. And actually in some places it is brought that's why we also find that the Isser of Basar B'chalav in one of the places is right around the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel, because as if the Torah is telling us, Be'ez Chageichem U'Bay'achem L'Farnai, when you are coming to me to celebrate a Yom Tif, Loi Tivashel Masha Tivashel Al Derech Plani. Don't cook what the other nations, Rachmana Litzlan, do when they serve their idols. So again, we are all known. We all know the other reasons perhaps why Basar B'chalav is terrible, because Basar B'chalav is an extension of the Isser of Dam. The combination of two opposite types of food like Basar B'chalav is Moilid Achzarius. This is not the common answer that you hear, the common reason that you hear, but it's a very important one, because that gives us some insight on why we find some chumras in Basar B'chalav that perhaps we don't find in many other Isurim. But you also have to know, even after you get all these reasons about the Isur, that is not the reason why we don't do it. It's some Rishonim say it's one of the chukim. It's one of the statutes of the Torah that perhaps I don't even know. I don't know if there is a reason, and really I don't even care the reason. I just don't do it because that's what the Torah says. Let's talk about the Isur of Maris Ha'ayin. The Maris Ha'ayin connecting to Basar B'chalav. I'm not going to do what the Torah doesn't want me to do. I'm not going to cook milk and meat, but I'm not really doing milk and meat. I'm doing almond milk. I'm doing soy milk. So the Ramah, the Mechaber talks about, we all know that Maris Ha'ayin is something that the Rabbanan want you to stay away from, if it could lead that the person watching might mistake and do something which will be prohibited in the Torah. If, however, he will not come to a severe avera, at the very worst, he might only transgress the Issur D'Rabbanan. So that's a machlokes between the Ramah and the Shach. The Ramah says, if it's only Issur D'Rabbanan, you don't have to be worried about Maris Ha'ayin, and therefore he's as easy, perhaps, as saying chicken and soy milk, chicken and almond milk, you don't have to be worried about, because it's only B'D'Rabbanan. You don't have to be worried about concerning yourself with what the person watching you doing would conclude based on what he sees. Whereas the Shach proves that even in the Issur D'Rabbanan you have to be concerned, not misleading the bystander to come to that conclusion. It's interesting to note that the Darkei Tshuva brings halachadike important things, because we know that in chasnas you have parva coffee, soy milk right after a whole fleishik meal. So when you learn these halachas, it's important to read the achronim that the Darkei Tshuva refers to about different scenarios, because right now we only spoke about soy milk or chalav shkedim. How about if you created a dish that is not milchik whatsoever, but it's made out of flourly, and there's crushed nuts, crushed almond, and it's what? Or he brings an example of the Darkei Tshuva. It's the white of the egg, and there's no milk there whatsoever. But the appearance that it looks on this dough, it looks like this is a little cheesy. It looks like there's cheese on there. And the person watching doesn't know. So if you have a dish that there's a steak, and right next to it there's a powdery food, it looks like potatoes, but with some crushed almonds on it, crushed food on it, that gives you the white appearance that it looks like cheese, has the same problem. So it's interesting that the Darkei Tshuva says, as long as they're not there on the same plate at the same time, there is no chashash of maras ayin. Obviously, the best thing is not to put anybody in a position to be misled and say this is permitted in any way, shape, or form. But he comes to a conclusion: if they're not there at the same time, eating them together, then when they're there at the same time together, there's a chashash maras ayin. If they're one after another, then you have nothing to worry about. Yeshikoyach, and please join us again next week.